Today's topic is related to Siebel UX improvement and how you can transform the entire Siebel UI in 6 to 9 months. So this is like ambitions we have. At Ideaport Riga, we are firm believers into Siebel CRM as a platform, as long as you know how to configure it, integrate it, run it. Now, Siebel is still quite a popular solution for non-SaaS CRM platforms. We all know how configurable it is. We all appreciate different industry data models which come out of the box, and you can achieve pretty much everything. From integration point of view, whenever a new technology is emerging, Siebel is catching up on that. So maybe REST services was an exception, but now Siebel is pretty good with the REST services. So it's improving stability of those and things you can do with REST services significantly from one release to another. And what was announced during Siebel Virtual Summit in September is that Siebel is going to have this native Kafka streaming integration. And this is, again, if you want to learn more, you can already now go and watch some recordings of the overview session we had last week. And there is like maybe 10, 15 minutes dedicated to Kafka topic, or join Friday webinar to ask more questions about it. With improved CI/CD capability that many of the customers are implementing and presenting at Oracle events. Again, another big announcement that Siebel had during September was cloud native architecture. And a little bit of background for that is such that Oracle as a company is launching new SaaS product, so kind of subscription-based service called Digital Experience for Communication. And the UI of this SaaS application is built using Redwood design system, this brand new cool stuff Oracle is pushing ahead in order to improve user experience. But behind the UI, there is a little service layer, which then further talks to different backend systems. And Siebel is being quite heavily used as a backend system, in addition to a few other applications as well, which Oracle has through prior acquisitions. And since it's going to be a SaaS offering, it means that Oracle will start running Siebel itself on the massive scale. So Oracle itself needs to ensure that Siebel is highly available, that it's cheap to run, that they can put deployments with not much of the risks and costs. And the way how they address these issues is just to take cloud native computing foundation standards for building cloud native applications, pre-build, rewired Siebel into cloud native services, like for the observability, for service mesh management, for deployments and other stuff, and basically made it run as a cloud native application. So the first release of this digital experience for communication product is planned in January or February. So originally they targeted for December, but it kind of moved a little bit. And also later this year, this cloud native architecture will be available to all the other Siebel customers as well. So basically, you will be able to run Siebel as a cloud native application with a standard Kubernetes and the supporting services around it, like Kibana, Grafana, Elastic, Fluentd, Istio, etc. And we can enjoy the same benefits as Oracle is getting through this DX4C offering. There is an overview of that in the webinar we had last week, so you can go and check it out, the recording and slides. There is a recording of the Monday webinar, which was dedicated to this cloud native architecture and what these different boxes in cloud native ecosystems are doing. Okay, but still our firm belief that these innovations that Oracle is doing with Siebel, they are great, but largely they are focused on improving development experience. They are focused on improving, the way how we deploy Siebel and operate it. But still, there are kind of very few things coming out which directly impact the end users. Very few Siebel customers are happy with Siebel UI, and that's why you see a lot of customer presentations on how they tweaked Siebel UI in the way so that you can hardly recognize Siebel. And this is what we also do. So we've been working in the Siebel UX space for 4 years now, and over this time, we kind of tried to figure out what is the optimal approach to do that, and we have tried all the different ways. The reasons why we do that is that first, any Siebel customer running standard Siebel UI will mention you these typical user experience issues. There are too many clicks to complete the tasks in the system. There is overwhelming amount of fields on the screen. Some of them as the users I really need, some of them and majority of them I don't need, and it's kind of hard for me to find exactly the information I'm looking for. Typical story that it takes quite a long time for new Siebel users to learn how to work with the application. And therefore, some of our customers have like 400 different videos, recordings, which a new employee need to go through in order to get started with Siebel. What we need to do, this user experience transformation, which is the topic for today. And what we are going to get out of it immediately, we will see end user productivity improvement. So people are able to complete their task faster, both because we streamlined the navigation in the system, we simplify the information and we show only the fields that we need to. It takes less time to think in order to complete certain tasks and also to learn. And we kind of try to prevent users going into the errors. From that perspective, since users start liking the system more, we see the increased adoption of Siebel CRM within the companies. And at the end of the day, company invested into Siebel so that the users are using it. But in many organizations, we see that users are having their workarounds and try to use Siebel as minimum as possible. And of course, immediately we go into a situation when it takes significantly less time for new users to start using system. Kind of one of the cases we've been working on before with the Tele2 client, when we built this new UI for them, they were able to cut training time really significantly. So within like 1 hour, users were starting to work on one of the core screens in the system. In the longer term, it means that our business processes as a company becoming more efficient. Users start liking their work environment more. Again, because we make them more productive, it means that it is much easier for them to meet their objectives. Their backlog is not as huge as they have now. And again, in order to meet SLA, they don't need to stress out as much as they would need now. And ultimately, as the end customers, we all like to work and talk with the organization which knows what they are doing, which are fast in serving our needs. And ultimately, we see that the end customer experience is also improving as we improve Siebel UI. Again, depending on what kind of application you have and what kind of areas you are working with, there could be a different type of business metrics you can track and see improving with the Siebel UX improvement. So I will not go into the details here. And this is what we want to achieve. So basically, during these last several years, we, as I told, were trying to find out what is the best approach to improve Siebel UI in a big way, like change entire Siebel UI for entire application. And our ambition for now is that the team of 3 people within 6 to 9 months can achieve this goal. And it's not only people like developers working on the team, but it's also people who are doing all the user research, UI design. So basically, you can call them UX specialists. And for us to accomplish this mission, we again prepared several assets that we have. So first, there is a methodology, which we call Nexus Sprint. Basically, we took the design thinking methodology, which is sort of standard methodology in the UX domain, and adopted it for Siebel CRM UI redesign projects. Because again, redesigning Siebel UI, it is different from making mobile application for the end customer of the application. And it's both the complexity, it's the type of the users we need to work with, but also some of the organizational constraints on how much time we can spend actually on working with different UX tools and methods. So basically, we still find out that customers are eager to put more money into UX improvement when it comes to the end customer application UX activities and less money into employee-facing applications like Siebel CRM is. The next critical component of our solution is Nexus Face, which is a low-code tool for Siebel UI development for Siebel teams. Behind the hood, we are using Nexus Bridge, which is open source library, allowing to use modern web frameworks together with Siebel Open UI. And what also new, what is coming, and this is what we're going to be showing to you in a bit more details, are Nexus apps. So basically, it is a set of pre-configured Nexus prototypes and applications which are assembled in Nexus Face so that you don't need to start your UI development from scratch. And we're going to be covering all these topics in today's presentation. Definitely as a system integrator company, we use Nexus Toolkit when customer ask us to improve Siebel user experience. So we can do this assignment. So we take all the tooling and all the methodology we have and bring it to the customer to implement their project. But also we are more than happy to share this toolkit with the Siebel community because again, Nexus Face is a paid product and we're kind of interested in more companies adopting it. So on one hand, it is perfectly fine for us that customer Siebel teams are getting all these assets and start using them independently. We're also now starting all the partnership with Siebel integrator companies. So we have one agreement done in Chile with Latin American Siebel provider. And what we share with the community is like, first of all the trainings which related to methodology and the tools. So, if you take this toolkit into the game, we will provide you all the training. Initially, just to make sure that you guys are getting all the hands-on knowledge and learn tips and tricks using methodology and tools, we kind of do this co-implementation of the initial phase of the project. And then going forward, we provide ongoing support. So be it with the tooling, be it with the expert services related to, how do I build this particular behavior of UI in Nexus Face, or again, helping with the methodology or kind of sales efforts for the partners. So we can kind of always there to support you. So again, the whole idea, it's not Ideaport Riga who only have this toolkit and it makes us unique and we deliver projects end to end. So we share it with existing customer teams, like if you have like partner working and your own Siebel specialists, but also we partner with Siebel integrators. Okay, first, the Nexus Face. The goals that we wanted to achieve with Nexus Face, and again, during the pilot project we had this summer, we kind of proved it as well, that first, we make development time really short. So usually it would take us to get access to the client environment and to configure Siebel View significantly longer time than just to build the UI from scratch with Nexus Face. Then we have this pretty rich array of different UI components. I think Artyom was saying to me last week that we have like 55 components plus a whole bunch of presets of these components as well. Now, these components are based on the different open source libraries, mainly implementing Google Material Design. And then through the design system functionality within Nexus Face, we can style it to match any customer design guidelines or style guidelines. Where we also see kind of a big advantage is that it is easy for existing Siebel teams who are primarily Siebel specialists to build this nice and effective UI and also to support it once the development is done, because no advanced web development skills are needed. We still are working on the projects when we do build Siebel UI using React or Vue.js or Angular, but also we see that with Nexus Face, with the basic CSS and JavaScript knowledge, you can do pretty much everything you want to when it comes to Siebel UI development with Nexus Face. So we're kind of, again, trying to lower the bar when it comes to skills. And as one of the customers who is on the call today told, that the advantage of Nexus Face is that we don't need to have web developers on our Siebel teams. 6 months ago, we had this initial webinar when we introduced Nexus Face. So there we have showed like how do we actually work with Nexus Face and how we configure pages, fragments, how do we hide particular elements of the UI according to some business logic, how we map it to Siebel data, how we work with Siebel PM and physical render layers. So we'll not be covering it today. So if you want to go, just follow this link and can watch 40 minutes of the previous webinar. And what we've been doing else during this summer, so first is that we had like 4 pilot projects with different customers, and I would say many of them were successful. Currently, with existing one of the customers, we're kind of negotiating about the project start, and another one might start working with Nexus Face after they've done their upgrade job. In the meantime, we've been working on how we actually improve usability of the Nexus Face tool itself, so that for the new users, it is easier to start working. That as we build this new UI using Nexus Face, it takes us less time to implement it, and also streamline the UI itself, so the different modules of the Nexus Face have pretty much same navigation patterns and look and feel. Another big work we have done is that we have prepared Help Center, which has all the documentation about the product and some references to external libraries. So basically, if you go through this documentation and get to learn some other stuff around it, you can start working with Nexus Face efficiently, so that you kind of learn how to build the application itself. We also provide a training application, which is pre-built for you as you get Nexus Face already. And there are like step-by-step instructions how you would build this. Then we are working on the REST service enablement. So we hope that the progress would be larger, but still we are able to call REST from Nexus UI and show the data. And maybe the initial use cases where we will be using it is integrating with Oracle Policy Automation, as we want to implement these different UIs, which are kind of conversational ones, so that instead of implementing all the complex logic in the Nexus Face, we just want to outsource it to the rule engine system like Oracle Policy Automation is. And also potentially, since, for example, task-based UI in Siebel is not available through the Nexus bridge because it's like totally different technology, how task-based UI is working, we're thinking to use Nexus Face to do the UI rendering, but switching between the different steps of the process could be done again using this Oracle Policy Automation or Intelligent Advisor, as they call it now. And also, we kind of looked at the pricing from another angle. If last 6 months ago, we were thinking to have the pricing based on the number of users, and now we are introducing these 2 modes. So you have development mode when you can do effective development of the UI with the Nexus Face. And this is like has like 1 fee. But then when you go into maintenance mode, then there is like smaller amount of fee being charged. So you are paying more when you get more benefits out of Nexus Face, and you pay less for the support when major part of the transformation is done and you just need to do minor changes or introduce new functionality on the smaller scale. But still, the biggest thing that we would like to also highlight today more is this Nexus applications, as we call them. So effectively, what we have done is that we have studied different CRM applications, different case management applications, figuring out what they do great in their flow for the users, what kind of patterns they use, in what scenarios these patterns could apply and stuff. So we have like one document, and Alex is going to tell more about it. All these principles documented in one resource. Then as we kind of move to high fidelity UI design, so typically we would use Figma for that, and Nexus applications also exist in the Figma format. So whenever we need to do the prototyping or take this existing Nexus application and change it to fit customer needs, we're not, again, starting from scratch, but instead we're using some of the assets that we have pre-built. And I think coolest part where we will be demoing it today is Nexus apps, which effectively take the designs and have them kind of implemented in Nexus Face. Again, the whole idea is that we further speed up Siebel UI transformation time. So we kind of accelerate time to market. Again, we are talking about like 6 to 9 months to convert all Siebel UI. And instead of starting every time from the blank page, we try to use the assets we have prepared, and in this way speed up the whole development process. And also, since all of the Siebel applications are very different across different customers, so like if you look at them, okay, you kind of recognize that it's Siebel, but the business logic is often very much different. And of course, all the fields we have, data model, it's changing from one customer to another. So basically, it was kind of a bit hard maybe for us to define like one size fit all application for all the use cases. So, and instead, what we have done, we took this role-based approach. So we looked at how salespeople would use Siebel application, how call center or branch people would use application, and then how the back office use application. And based on their requirements, we came up with this 3 Nexus application. Again, sales, call center, back office. And kind of I quickly jump through the differences. Okay, for the salesperson, he or she usually works across multiple Siebel views. So like jumping from accounts to contacts to opportunities to the dashboard, back and forth, updating activities, updating opportunities, entering new lead. Again, if we talk about call center branch, typically they are there to serve particular client who is either on the phone with us or meeting us in the office face-to-face, pre-COVID times or post-vaccination time. So now maybe this format is not that popular. And then we have the back office, which is working with the cases. So they have like backlog of cases they need to process. Either it could be related to sales cases, sales opportunities, or service cases, but that's kind of the idea. When it comes to the usage of system, salespeople, use Siebel CRM time to time when they really need to. On the contrary, additional 2 roles, they use Siebel every day and mainly throughout the whole day. If you look at salespeople, they perform many but simple tasks. If you look at the call center branch person, they perform multiple tasks, but they are of medium complexity.
Just to comment on these 3 different roles that we don't prepare that every salesperson or call center agent or back office employee has this specific use cases or way of working. Here we just generalize them to build them applications. As you described, I will talk about 3 parts of Nexus apps. One is patterns and guidelines that we use for low fidelity UI patterns. Then the prototyping toolkit for high fidelity UI design and the pre-built Nexus Face applications. Let me walk you through each of them. So I'll start with patterns and guidelines. Being a company that keeps up with latest user experience and usability trends, we've tried to summarize our knowledge related to user experience in enterprise applications. And this knowledge was put into the set of guidelines. In addition, we did the competitive research of multiple sales, service, and marketing applications. So as a result, we prepared a set of patterns and UI components that correspond to 3 principles that we find important for enterprise applications. First is efficiency. User productivity should not be damaged, but improved. Then simplicity, so that straightforward applications like a key for user onboarding and allow to minimize training costs and human errors. And third is the flexibility, because like enterprise systems tend to become overcomplicated with the time. And we need to have a toolkit at hand, which would help us scaling those application functionality without damage. So this pattern and guideline library focus on several aspects like page layout, personalization or customization, data entry, data display, and multiple components that we find pretty useful for enterprise applications. Let's look into the page layouts. Here we have several groups like dashboards, record details, data grids, and guided views. For dashboards, there are like info board, which can look like this, and it's pretty generic dashboard, which doesn't rely on some specific entity and just summarize the information across the application. Another is a well-known 300-degree view, which here is a call center application that I will look into a bit later. For the record details, we have two layouts which emphasize user on record details or the records which are related to specific entity. Here, for example, we can see the layout which focuses on the records related to the service request, but we can switch into service request details and work with them. Then we have multiple data grids like list, Kanban view, and split view. Here is a short demonstration. And the layouts can be easily switched between three of them. I will walk you through also later. And two guided views. One is a wizard, similar to well-known Task UI in Siebel. And another one is open state, which doesn't usually exist in Siebel, where we have a certain record and we see multiple stages and in which stage this record currently is and where can it go. There are multiple personalization, data entry, and data display patterns. I'll quickly show you the data entry, for example, pattern of sidebar edit, where we have a list of records and they can be edited with a sidebar, which expands when the user goes into the edit mode. We built a prototyping toolkit in Figma, and it contains all the patterns and components we described in a pattern and guideline guide. So here we have multiple components and also the pre-built sales applications, which can be used to speed up the collaboration and brainstorming when doing your Siebel UI transformation. For example, here we have view with a contact card of a sales application. I can, based on discussion or brainstorming session with colleagues, I can quickly update it, change the UI easily, and then reuse the pre-built prototype that we made for this specific application. Here it is, and we can share it also with our stakeholders to collaborate on the design or the functionality and the use cases. Once we are done with the design phase of the applications, we can adjust the pre-built Nexus applications. Like here we had sales application, prototyping kit, back office and call center application kit. All of them was recently described, and same applications are pre-built using the Nexus Face. So we can adjust them after brainstorming. Let me walk you through the basic functionality that they have. So here is the sales application, and it's the simplest one. It has a draft info board pre-built, accounts, contacts, and activity lists, and also has a global search functionality. All three applications I'm demonstrating are built on mock data. They're currently not tied to any Siebel or integrated applications data sources. We can move into opportunity list and have a Kanban board with opportunities. I can quickly filter the ones I'm interested in. If I drill down into the opportunity, I get focus on its activities and smaller emphasis on the opportunity details. The editing, as you might see, is quite different from Siebel, so that user needs to switch it on before he can edit. And we find this pattern pretty requested one by the novice users who are not sure about the data and usually sometimes afraid if they have changed something unintentionally. Also, users can customize the forms that they are working on and keep just fields which they are interested in for their specific way of working. The editing, like here for the activities, also goes from the side panel. If I move on to the call center application, in comparison to the sales application, which had user navigating through different views, the call center keeps user on the one screen and have two static parts, left and right, and the middle one is dynamic and displays most critical information for the user. If he goes into details of a specific record, he still keeps these critical entities at hand so that they can be searched through or explored in more details. Also, on the right side, we have a service order timeline or service request timeline, which is a list of recent orders, service orders, and service requests. and also allows creating a new service request, which in this case would move user into the conversation with the customer during the call and will provide him a list of questions and the possible answers, which would lead into the different scenarios how conversation can evolve. If we implement the Oracle policy automation here, we can guess the possible topics of the call, provide them for the user. User will pick one, like unpaid invoice discussion here, and then system would just list him exact phrases and the script, what should be told to the user and what sort of the actions can he get. And then based on the answers received, the conversation would end and the questions proposed will change. Here, the service timeline keeps user up to date about any service request which was created during the call. Like here we have a list of service orders which were created in the past, and it will show also the ones which got created during the call. Let me move into back office application, which covers the most complicated user flows and cases. Here, for example, I'm focusing on a service request backlog. And for today, I might just pick some of them. So I would navigate into the Kanban view to see like which status service request has a longer list and its negotiation. Then I might filter by negotiation and move into the split view to like walk through this negotiation service request in more detail. So I might explore their details and also see some summary of the service request, also the state in which it currently is and where it might go. If I want to like dive deep into the service request in more detail and would like to focus on it, I would navigate into its details and fulfill the service request information or explore it. And also I might work through its related records, like here it's offer list or what is included in the service offer, like affected assets and some additional execution activities. Then all the activities what happened during the day. For some reason they're not showing here. It's like demo effect. I'm sorry for this. And then also look and check whether there are any attachments which are important to me and I need to see related to this service request. If I see that, for example, I have a list of assets and it's quite huge, and I would like to explore what's inside of each of them, how they differentiate, and maybe I would like to adjust my service proposal. I can split into the 3-column view here and have a list of assets and other records displayed in the middle, but there are details displayed on the right column. And if I look into the industrial crane details, it might have some additional like details or also related child records, like here it's rented equipment. I would like to go into details of this specific table and list and compare its records one by one. And since it's quite huge, I can adjust my layout so that I focus and have a better view of these specific records in here. And I can iterate through each offer and affected asset and compare its rented equipment. We use here a pattern to keep the selected tab so that user can easily compare what's inside and maybe do some additional adjustments or remove duplicates or propose any alternative offers. And also, if I would like to dig into the offered assets in more detail, I can hide the details completely and just focus on this specific table and work with it. The editing for back office applications is a bit different from call center, which provides persistent editing possibility, and for sales application it was switched one. Here we have a combination where user can easily update specific fields and also move into the...
Yeah, thanks, Alex. What we've done with these Nexus applications, on one hand, the combination of different useful UI patterns, which are implemented both in the low fidelity, in the high fidelity, in Figma, and then built using Nexus Face. Since it's not like a big deal for us to bind the same data to Siebel based on kind of certain restrictions, which I answered in the chat window or in the question answer sections here. So we cannot do task-based UI, we cannot do product configurator, but the rest is pretty much doable. So we didn't really bother to bind to Siebel because this is just sort of a Kickstarter, if you will, for Siebel project. We take it, change the UI based on the requirements and based on the analysis we're doing. And then binding really comes as a really last part. The final piece of these 3 components in Nexus toolbox, again, Nexus Face, Nexus Apps, is Nexus Sprints, or our Nexus sprints. So as I mentioned, we took design thinking methodology and started to apply it in Siebel Open UI project. Effectively, design thinking is standard practice in the user experience community. Our background at Ideaport Riga is that we got trained and certified by Nielsen Norman Group. Therefore, we're using their materials, like their design thinking cycle. And if you look at it in a simplistic way, that every time we start working with Siebel UI redesign, we start with user experience research phase, or with the user research phase, because we first need to build an evidence-based understanding about current problems users are facing with Siebel applications, and then discuss like which of these problems we really need to solve and which maybe we can solve, but later with a smaller priority. And then once we understand what are actual problems, we start moving to a UI design phase. So we go through ideation here and prototyping phase. So when we come up with different concepts, like how we can solve particular user problem with the help of UI layout or navigation or the way how we visualize fields, then we build prototypes to see how would it work in the real life. And then we either present it to the stakeholder or we move to the next phase. Again, with Nexus applications, research part really remains the same. So we still need to do the research, doing the tools I will explain a bit later. But this UI design phase is significantly shortened, because instead of starting and figuring out like, okay, what the layout could be, or how we could solve this problem or that problem, we kind of already go to our design patterns, this low fidelity design patterns. We kind of pick what kind of layout and navigation patterns would be the best for this particular user persona and for the task they are doing. And then already there, we have in the Figma UI, in the Figma prototyping tool, kind of pre-built patterns as well. So, these activities basically take place, but they take place in the shorter time period. Once we have the UI design ready and most likely approved by the customer, then we move into the validation phase. And here we want to validate two things. So first, we run another round of user usability tests with the users, just to make sure that this UI given to the users solves the problem we identified during the research phase. And also we validate the new UI from the functional point of view. So basically, if there are certain features Siebel need to implement and have been implementing in the old UI, that also with the new UI, it's possible to do the same, so that we're not kind of missing any business functionality. And basically, when these two validations are done, so we kind of either write the user stories in Jira or make comprehensive solution overview document covering both functional aspects and UI aspect, and basically make everything ready up to the status so that developers could start their work. Okay, and with this methodology, we can implement Siebel UI redesign projects of different scales. So meaning that sometimes a customer want to do some technical improvements, just, change this most heavily used use case or optimize UI for a particular, user persona, and that's it. Or we can also do like entire Siebel transformation. But the way how these two projects are running, they would be different. So first, if we talk about this UI improvement project, we start with Kickoff and Inspire mini project. When we analyze on the high level existing Siebel solution, identify what are the business processes, what are the users, what are the use cases, and also prioritize which use cases usability we need to address first. And at the same time, just to kind of make sure that sponsors of the project kind of understand what we are going after, we build also inspirational UI based on sample data. And again, to run this project, we don't need to have any VPN access to the client environment. We don't need to have access to Siebel. So it works on the sample data, but again, all the fields and the values will be very similar to what the actual customer is using. This is maybe one of the learning we had during the summer pilots, when again, getting access and getting Siebel up and running, it just takes too much time. And again, it's not the goal here. Okay, then we traditionally move to this UX design sprint. So within 2 to 3 weeks using this cycle, we take a particular use case, do user research, do UI design, validation, and hand it to development. And from development point of view, we need to prepare Siebel views first, so that we are able to work with Siebel data, both like read it and update it or create new records. We compose this UI using Nexus Face. And again, in case we're using Nexus applications, we are changing or copying the pages and the fragments which are needed based on the design, and then adding the fields which were missing or changing some sections of the UI. And basically, we are ready to start mapping of this new UI to Siebel data. If we start with a more ambitious project about re-implementing entire Siebel UI within 6 to 9 months time frame, so like strategic transformation project, it goes in a slightly different way. So initial phase, this kickoff mini project, it's still the same. So we, again, look at Siebel, look at processes, user roles, identify use cases. Here, maybe we kind of prioritize what use cases are more critical and build the same inspirational UI based on one use case. And then we do, for 1 or 3 months, depending how large your Siebel application is, in-depth user research. So again, we go all through the use cases, sit with the users, run usability tests, and then we come up with the entire new UI design for entire Siebel application. We do it in the low fidelity way, meaning that we would have all the views, all the sections, so like applets, if you will, of the Siebel, but we're not going to field level yet. And then we refine sort of implementation plan, meaning that, how, which parts of the UI we are pushing out first, and then which we do later. And then once this high-level design is done, so we move to the detailed design plus development phase. So technically here, you would have 2 parallel sprints running, one starting slightly later. There would be this sort of design sprint followed by the development sprint. And once we have built a decent amount of functionality, which kind of covers a set of use cases which we want to push out to production, we can do that. But effectively, we see that it would take like 4 to 6 months for a team of 2 people or 3 people do this development activity and UI design. Just to kind of highlight the activities we do at all the phases. So as I mentioned, the first initial kickoff and inspire project, we review Siebel, identify key roles, key processes. To build this inspirational UI, we kind of select one use case, do a couple of interviews. So not extensive user research, but just to kind of understand the end user perspective on things. And then we build this Nexus Face UI based on sample data. With a high level design, we do observations and the interviews with the users in kind of show and tell format, when we would sit with the users and spend with them 2 to 3 hours, like maybe with 2-3 users per each use case. Then we do usability tests, like 1 use case, 5 users. All the findings we have, we sort of collect them into the user journey map, and to give us some quantitative evaluation of where do we stand in terms of usability, we use this pure method to do that. Once this research is done, again, we do low fidelity new UI design for entire Siebel, like all the views, all the navigation, view sections, but without the fields. And then we kind of prioritize epics for the agile development. And with agile development, we work in sprints. So we pick one UI epic for new sprint. So first, maybe one team is doing this UX or UI design related activity. Again, high fidelity prototype, running usability tests with the users, validating functional requirements, updating user story for the developers. And then it would start like developer sprint where they would, again, change Siebel views to match the field needed. In some cases, we might need to change also Siebel configuration for whatever reason. And then again, we build UI Nexus Face and we bind this new UI to Siebel views and off we go. And this is like methodology on the high level. And again, I would say that it doesn't matter really what kind of technology you use for your Siebel UI redesign. We still kind of highly recommend that you're not just blindly jumping into the project, taking the best modern web framework and flashy UI component libraries and rebuilding the same Siebel UI, but with the modern stack, because you will not really change much of the usability. It will look different. It will feel maybe a bit different, but it will not make usability significantly better. And all the business benefits we try to accomplish, they will not be materialized at the end of the day. So either you kind of doing it with the jQuery or with React or using Nexus Face and Nexus Apps, we still highly recommend you that you take this Nexus sprint-related methodology. And again, we're happy to run maybe just this UX part of the projects together with you. And with that, we reach the final slide for the next steps you can take. So again, there is a web page dedicated to the Siebel UX transformation. If you kind of click on this or you go to this link, you will be taken to the proper landing page on our site. Study that, make your thinking, discuss with colleagues. Then you can go ahead and book a session with us to discuss Siebel UI redesign projects, which could be, if you are the client that you are planning to run, if you are the partner, we can discuss it here as well, like how can we work together on the particular client case. Until the end of March, this kickoff and inspire project is like on the special offer now, so we kind of run it for free for you. So 2 weeks, this is what we're prepared to invest. And then after this is done, you can go back and evaluate results. What are we able to achieve? How much time would it cost us to implement entire redesign or just particular, several use cases that we're aiming to? How do we want to move ahead? Like, do we use Nexus Face or we kind of build some other stuff in the JavaScript? And effectively, you decide on the next phase of the project. And once you go ahead, so we believe that with using a Nexus Face, Nexus apps and this Nexus Sprint methodology, we can turn around the usability of any Siebel application within 6 to 9 months with a team of 3 people. It could be our people, it could be your people, it could be a mix of people. And then we kind of reach the goal that business users are re-engaged with Siebel, so they see it as a valuable tool in their everyday business. We enhance life cycle of Siebel while bringing all the benefits to our company we're working to. I think we kind of reached the last slide. So again, it is series of the webinars we run in December. Friday at the same time, we'll have a webinar on Kafka. Hope it's going to be kind of also interested. And particularly, we will be talking how we can improve maybe performance of Siebel related to virtual business components and stuff. So let's go ahead and maybe answer a couple of questions. Yes, Mihail, I will be able to do that. So I will answer it live. So if you are kind of a partner, then definitely we are open to cooperation. And in fact, I was thinking to reaching out to Maxim Chugunkin from JET to discuss this question as well. Go to our site, explore more, reach out to us, and we can discuss either partnership or Siebel UX redesign at your customer, or training opportunities, how we can enable customer team to do all that stuff. So thank you very much and have a good evening, everyone.